Back again with another private stock event. Everything that we're about to look at in the video will be on sale on the private stock page of our website, ashlandleather.com, tomorrow. And that's Friday, July 28th at 12 p.m. noon Central Time. We have almost 100 items in this next private stock event, and let's go through each of them, or many of them, one by one. The theme of this next event is texture. So we have everything from marbled shell cordovan to inverted. We've got some Western texture, some boxboard, we've got some bison. In addition to all of those great and unique textures, we have a bunch of different wallet styles. Let's start off first with a Johnny the Fox. This one is 100% marbled color 8 shell cordovan. So we got the marbled color 8 shell cordovan on the outside here. You can see the range of color that it has, from that classic dark brown burgundy shade of color 8 down to some more of those lighter tones that are a little bit more similar to natural shell cordovan. And on the inside, this is what makes this wallet extra special. We have marbled color 8 shell cordovan on the interior as well. It's very difficult for us to source rare shell cordovan colors like the marbled color 8 to be thin enough for the inside of the Johnny the Fox. If we pick normal shell cordovan leather, this wallet just is way too thick. Next up is inverted shell cordovan. This is inverted ultraviolet. A lot of people are confused by this one because it's very confusing. The idea for the inverted shell was to get that dye splatter that we normally see on the reverse side of cordovan, but to put it on the shell side of the leather. So they actually finish the leather upside down. They finish it for the back side there, and then you get all these random drip marks on the exterior of the wallet, but you also get the bright, shiny luster of the cordovan. Here's a look at the inside where we have natural shell cordovan. Up next is our first Western texture of the day. We got Western green shell cordovan. Turned out beautifully here with a contrasting rust color thread on the outside that hints to the color combo on the interior, where we have more Western shell cordovan in both green and natural. Now here's a fun one. This is actually amaretto shell cordovan with the Western texture on it. I was a little confused by this one because I thought it was just a variant on natural shell, but it turns out when you press the texture into the cordovan, the color tends to lighten up quite a bit. So this was originally amaretto shell, but now has a Western texture pressed into it, and I love the way that turned out. It's a really nice depth of color. Here's a look at the inside where we have continued the same theme with Western texture, but this is alternating Western and cigar shell cordovan. Now here's a really cool one, speaking about how the textures sort of press out the color. This is ultraviolet shell cordovan that is starting to look more like magenta shell cordovan. Very vibrant, almost pink shade here. Again, with that Western texture, we've got some nice hand-stained edges on this wallet, and then alternating card slots on the inside with natural shell, and then Western ultraviolet. Here's another Western texture. This is actually my favorite texture that Horween does. Western texture, this time it's on marbled, I believe this is marbled black shell cordovan. So you do see a little bit of these orangey tan colors popping through. On the inside, we have more Western shell cordovan, but this is Western natural and Western green. Here's a look at something extra special too. I've never seen this before. This is reverse epic splatter shell cordovan. You get this crazy dye mark, and then they put a Western texture on top of it. So sort of a layered textured effect here for this Johnny the Fox. On the inside, we've got some more Western amaretto with some Western green, and one more fox to look at before we look at some Fat Herbies. This one is also Western green shell cordovan with alternating card slots. What do you say we get into some Fat Herbies here? We'll start off with a hand stitch Fat Herbie. This one is amaretto shell cordovan sitting on top of color number 8 shell cordovan, and we have that contrasting hand stitching along the outside. It's more of like a white thread color. On the interior, we have a reverse natural interior. I like how reverse interiors wear in for the insides of just about every wallet. Here's a really special one. Leather tanned, I believe this was tanned in 1949. We call it 1940s calf. It's sometime in the 1940s that Horween Leather Company tanned this leather, and they were never able to reproduce it again. This leather has been sitting there for 80 some odd years, and it's a shame that they can't do it again because it's beautiful. We are running out of this, so there's not going to be any more of this leather once it runs out. So we did make a special Fat Herbie here, as well as another item that we'll look at in a moment. This Fat Herbie has some hidden card slots on the inside. Here's another one that's very nice. And this is an additional sort of funky idea where it has multiple textures on top of each other. This leather is tumbled, marbled color 8 shell cordovan. They start off with the marbling effect in the color 8 shell. So you can see some of the random color variants in the marbling on the right side here, and then by tumbling it, it opens up the fibers of the shell even more and gives it this additional layered texture. I really like how this tumbled marbled leather looks. This one has a contrasting cream color stitching and then more tumbled marbled shell on the inside. Another great color combination here, Fat Herbie in garnet and black shell cordovan. We have black hand stained edges all along the outside of this wallet, and on the inside we have an additional hidden card slot in the black shell sitting underneath some more garnet shell cordovan. And here's sort of the opposite of that. We've got black on top of garnet this time with a contrasting red color stitching that pairs perfectly with the garnet shells. And then the inside here, combination again with garnet colored hidden card slots underneath some black shell cordovan. And I believe this might be the first appearance of inverted color 8 shell cordovan. We'll take a look at that in a second. This is garnet shell cordovan for the bill slot sitting on top of that inverted color 8. And inside of here, I'll try to give you a peek. There's some really cool dye splatter on the inverted shell. Now this is the shell side of the leather. The reverse side is inside of here. So on the inside, we're able to show you that Horween ink stamp with the epic dye splatter on the outside, and then more garnet shell cordovan for the card holders. This one turned out great. We've got some really nice green shell cordovan with a gold foiled stamp. And there's something great about the gold and green together that work very nicely. This one has a contrasting cream color stitching. And here's a look at another inverted color 8 piece. Pretty subtle effect for these inverted color 8 shells, but there is a really dramatic range of color depending on what angle that you look at this leather. So some angles is a little bit lighter, like this angle here. And if I were to just spin this around, you'll notice just a slight bit darker. Pretty interesting, just depth of color on all the pieces of shell cordovan. And once again, this is the first appearance of inverted color 8 shell cordovan. Really like the look of that. Here's a look at the interior, more inverted color 8 on the right and then reverse on the left. Another first appearance here. This is color number 8 Dublin leather. We've done this leather in the past, but this is the first time that we have seen it with that beautiful Western texture imparted into it. And again, there's something about that Western texture that really makes the color depth come through. So much better color representation on the Western color 8 Dublin here. Normally it's hard for me to show just how nice this color looks in person, but it does have a very nice dark brown burgundy shade to it, as you would see in color 8 shell cordovan. It just translates a little bit differently on the Dublin. Sometimes it looks a little bit black, but I think it looks appropriate in the videos finally. And here's another one that I like very much. We've got Western natural shell cordovan on the outside of this Fat Herbie with more Western natural on the inside. And we have a couple epic Dublin pieces. This is epic English tan Dublin and the inside and on the outside. And the last Fat Herbie for the moment, this is epic chestnut Dublin. We haven't done this color in a long time. I don't even know if we have more of this leather, but really exceptional and dramatic grain character and figuring on this piece of chestnut Dublin, both on the outside and on the inside. And then we have the baby Ashland stamp with the gold foil on the inside right. Let's move into some Capone money clips. We've got marbled color 8 shell cordovan on the outside as well as on the inside. Here's another one in marbled color 8 shell cordovan. This variant of marbled shell is a little bit darker, and each piece of marbled shell cordovan is just a little bit different. So you will see a range of color, just like on these two Capones here. Here's a really cool one. You've got some epic dye splatter on reverse blue shell cordovan, and this one has been hand glazed. And we filled in the fibers on the reverse side of the shell here to give you that really bright, shiny look. And it has a little bit more texture than the normal shell cordovan because, again, this is the reverse side of that shell cordovan. Here's a look at the inside with some more epic splatter reverse blue shell cordovan. This might be my favorite Capone of the batch here. There's something really special about this blood orange shell cordovan. And this color was intended to be dip-dyed amaretto shell cordovan, but that dip dyeing process made the color much darker than normal amaretto shell. It's sort of exactly how it sounds, blood orange. So it's a darker, more reddish orange shade, but it does have some extra dye sort of splatter in it as well. Maybe you can see a little bit more of that splattering on the inside. Up next is another green shell cordovan piece. Capone money clip here in green shell cordovan with contrasting cream color stitching, and then more green shell on the inside with a gold foil stamp. A couple more reverse Capones here. This one has a Horween ink stamp on the back side of it, which a lot of people are looking for in the reverse shell. The other thing they look for are all these random dye marks. What's great about the reverse shell cordovan is just how nicely it wears in. If you're familiar with any natural color veg tan leather, this leather ages in the same way as that. It will get much darker, more bright and shiny. And here's another Capone with all reverse shell cordovan on the outside with some great Horween ink stamps, but this time on the inside We flipped this to be all color number 8 shell cordovan. All right, there's plenty to look at. I'll try to move a little bit faster. We got a royal blue cypress, Frank the Enforcer, and we have a couple 5-slot card cases. This one is Western Amaretto on top of Western Ultraviolet. The difference with this Frank the Enforcer, the 5 slots, we have an additional card slot on the back. Here's another 5-slot card case. This time it is raw denim shell cordovan with the Western texture on top of Western Ultraviolet. This one is hand stitched with a pink color thread. Here's another cool one, Western texture ultraviolet on top of Western Amaretto for the middle card slot. And this wallet is called the Vertical Frank the Enforcer. It's become pretty popular over the last few months, surprisingly so, because we only offer these currently in the private stock events. This one has the 2 card slots on the front with a hidden card slot underneath, one larger slot in the center. The slot where my finger is will fit US dollars folded in half. And then we have 2 additional card slots on the back and a gold foil Horween shell cordovan ink stamp. And another texture to look at, this is the hatch grain texture, and it is on the denim blue shell cordovan. This is a vertical card slot Bugs Moran. And on the inside, we have some alternating hatch grain textures, but on the Amaretto hatch grain and denim blue hatch grain. And another one that's sort of the opposite. This time is Amaretto hatch grain alternating with the blue and then more blue on the outside. And here's some additional layered textures. We got the hatch grain texture on top of some marbled black shell cordovan. Really interesting look for this shell, and it's really dramatic. Depending on what angle you look at it, these like textures sort of pop differently. So as I spin it around, you'll notice that the color and texture sort of looks different all over the place. Really funky look layering on all those textures. We got some more hatch grain on the interior and one more of those. Let me show you this piece here because each piece of marbled shell is just a little bit different. And we have some hatch grain whiskey shell cordovan. This is a color and texture a lot of people are looking for. Really classic look for this vertical card slot Bugs Moran. We have alternating hatch grain amaretto and whiskey on the interior. And we have some Tony the Ants. No tall Tonys in this batch, but I have heard you guys, you want to see some tall Tony the Ants. Here's a whiskey shell cordovan on the outside. And on the interior, we have some Western whiskey on top of whiskey shell. Up next is another one of those great pieces of tumbled marbled color 8 shell cordovan. Very interesting layered effect of textures. I love the way it's turned out here. On the interior, we have more of that same leather. Up next is a combination of Horween's Dublin leather sitting on top of color 8 shell cordovan. And on the interior, we have some reverse natural shell cordovan. Here's a beautiful piece. I love how this Bugs Moran turned out. We've got blue cypress. This is the royal blue cypress. And then a gold foil stamp for the interior with the Horween measuring machine stamp in the center. Another Bugs Moran. This time we have more of the Horween measuring machine stamp, but you can see the actual footage. So this piece of shell cordovan was 1.8 square feet. They give you a sense of how small the shells are. And this is my favorite shell cordovan color on the outside, Amaretto shell cordovan. And here's a really interesting one. I've never seen some dye splatter like this. We're going to call this the Epic Splatter Reverse Color 8, I believe. And these sort of drip marks, spray marks, I don't know what to call this. A very unique, almost like a wooden look for the exterior of this Bugs Moran. Some nice hand stained edges for this wallet, and then a combination of shell cordovan and reverse shell cordovan for the inside. And I like how the interior of this one turned out, as well as the exterior. This is a really nice Bugs also. And we don't see this very often. Black shell cordovan with a neon sort of yellow green stitching all along the inside and outside. I love the combination of the black shell on the right with the reverse black on the left. We get this sort of faded green, pale green look on the left side, which I think turned out great. Here's a look at the exterior, more black shell cordovan, very nice piece of leather here. And then something about that neon green, neon yellow. I think it's a yellow. This neon yellow thread makes the black look even better. And we have a couple of our traveler passport holders. And the first one is made in the Epic Natural Shell Cordovan, where you get to see all this additional texturing and sort of figured look on the shells that we don't normally see. That's what we call it Epic for. Here's a look at the inside. And one more traveler passport holder. This one is like a tumbled marbled black. I'm not really sure, honestly, what this is. Let's call it tumbled marbled black for now. Really interesting sort of slate gray greenish color and a little bit of blue in the top almost. Pretty interesting look for this leather, and I've never really seen one like this before, which is why the private stock's great. We have an opportunity to play with all these random looks that Horween's pumping out. And we have some more of that blood orange shell cordovan. This time is on the lighter sheath, and just as a reminder, the blood orange was originally intended to be dip-dyed amaretto shell cordovan. We also made a nice one-shot card case in that same leather. I love how this Frank the Enforcer turned out in that same epic splatter reverse color 8 shell cordovan. We have a little bit of that splattering effect on both the back and on the front, but on the front side, we've decided to put the Horween ink stamp cut right into the center card slot. And we have a couple Joe batters going up. This first one is in color number 8 Dublin. I was mentioning earlier that by pressing the Western texture into this leather really makes the color pop. And this is what it looks like without that texture pressed into it. Much lighter of a shade, but trust me, in person, you can definitely tell it is a dark brown and burgundy shade. Here's another one in color number 8 shell cordovan, so it's a good opportunity to compare the color 8 Dublin versus the cordovan. The wax layer that has been applied to the Dublin certainly makes the surface look much darker than the undertones. So you can see as I flexed it, we've revealed a little bit of those lighter undertones in the Dublin that do match the color 8 shell cordovan a little bit more nicely. We have another Joe Batters in cigar shell cordovan. If you're not familiar with this wallet style, it's just like our Capone money clip, except that instead of having the money clip, the little piece of hardware, we've opened up a bill slot in the back, and we call this the skip stitch, where the stitching does not go all the way to the top. This allows you a little bit easier access to get cash inside the bill slot. And one more Joe Batters to look at, this time is in navy blue shell cordovan. And we got a lot more to get through. We'll keep it moving. We got some denim blue shell cordovan for this Johnny the Fox with a natural latigo interior. We also have a Fat Herbie in black shell cordovan. This is only available by private stock or made to order now, which is why it's in the private stock event today. We don't actually stock the black shell cordovan Fat Herbies, nor do we keep the black shell cordovan Tony the Ants as a standard item. This is a beautiful piece though. I really like the matching hand stained edges that we do for all the black shell cordovan pieces, as well as the color 8 shell cordovan pieces. We have the same exact dye mix that Horween is using, and we're applying it to all the edges. Then we do a little bit of extra work with some waxing and burnishing just to fill in all of those parts of leather. And the result is just a very clean, filled in and polished look. All right, here's a total stunner. Raw denim shell cordovan for this Johnny the Fox. And it's a beautiful blue shade. And what makes it raw is it has not yet been polished. You can see it does have a nice luster, but it's not like a normal piece of cordovan. If you were to compare the luster here, just look at the level of shine compared to, this black shell we just looked at. You can see the normal cordovan is much more glassy and mirror-like when compared to the raw denim in this case. And then this Johnny the Fox has a contrasting orange color hand stitching all along the outside as well as on the inside. Really magical Johnny the Fox here. It's tough for us to get those thin pieces of shell. Every time I see one of them, I'm absolutely blown away. Here's a piece of epic black shell cordovan on the Frank the Enforcer. You can see that extra amount of character inside that front card slot. And here's another 1940s calf piece. This is our Bugs Moran with an additional quick access card slot on the outside, and then more 1940s calf skin on the inside. We have another hand stitch piece here. A lot of people have been asking for hand stitching, and we do charge a little bit more for it, but we're happy to do it for people by request. So this is a Capone money clip in the denim blue shell cordovan with a white hand stitching. I probably should have shown these first because I think these are my favorite things in the video. This is a project that Miranda in our shop has been working on, doing some inlaid work. And this is our keychain belt clip. In the shop, sometimes we call this the Key Buddy. You can see the cross section of the leather here is a drum dyed red latigo leather, and then they have stained black finish over the top. So the result is a really beautiful two-toned effect on a product that Horween calls Visage Latigo. So this is black and red Visage Latigo with that cool inlay. And props to Miranda in the shop. This one turned out great. We have a collection of these to look at. We also have English tan Dublin with black, and you can see the black matching edge there. Here's one in the brand new blue bison leather with a teal colored inlay. And then the last one is the other new bourbon bison leather. This is a leather that Horween is calling Yellowstone, and this one is inlaid with yellow. We have a couple key accessories to show you. This is our key fob loop, and this is made in marbled color 8 shell cordovan. There is some random variance in the marbled color 8 that I mentioned earlier in the wallets, but you can see the difference right here for these two pieces. Sometimes it's a little bit lighter, sometimes it's a little bit darker, and each of them are going to be a little bit different. Here's a look at the Lexington Hotel key case. This is also in marbled color number 8 shell cordovan. There is one screw post for the Lexington key case, whereas on the Vault key holder, and this one is in ultraviolet shell cordovan, the Vault has those 2 screw posts to fit your keys on, and I like to put maybe 3 up to 4 keys on each of those posts. And people have been digging our 20 millimeter NATO straps. We have one here in reverse blue with some epic splatter and then a Western texture imparted onto there. We have black hardware for that piece. Here's another one in Gator green shell cordovan. So this is the green shell cordovan with the Gator texture. More black hardware there. In fact, all these have black hardware. This one is the lizard texture for color number 4 shell cordovan. And the last one is amaretto shell cordovan with a Gator texture. And now all of these are 20 millimeters. So if your lug width on your watch is 20 millimeters, these will work nicely for you. And let's finish it off with some shell cordovan baseballs and one, for the first time ever, non-shell cordovan piece. This is the skip finish shell cordovan with a burgundy stitching. Here's one in denim blue shell cordovan. We also have this one with combination of green Gator and reverse shell cordovan. Here's one in whiskey shell cordovan with a nice red hand stitching. I like how this one turned out. We've got, I believe this is amaretto shell cordovan with reverse and then some teal stitching. Here's one in psychedelic, and this is reverse psychedelic shell cordovan. Really funky look. And then we've got the alternating sort of candy cane stitching on this baseball. Here's another one with a very nice Horween USA measuring machine stamp. And this is color number 4 shell cordovan. Another whiskey shell cordovan baseball. This time it has a more matching cream color stitching, unlike the red one we looked at a moment ago. We've got another skip finish baseball. A lot of people have been asking for more funky baseballs. This one is that same skip finish as the burgundy stitching over there, but we have the more bold sort of vibrant orange hand stitching for this ball. And the last item of the day, first ever appearance of our baseballs that aren't cordovan. So this is the royal blue cypress with a red hand stitching. So you got your, since we're in Chicago here, so you got your Chicago Cubs colors. And what's really striking about this baseball, being not cordovan, is you can really see the grain character and the difference between the cypress in this example and something like the cordovan. Just look how much more flat, smooth, and even the shell cordovan is. And if you get a closer look at the blue cypress, very, very grainy. And that's a big difference between a full grain leather like the cypress here and something like shell cordovan, which has no grain at all. So thanks so much for checking out all these items. It took a long time to get through all these, but I think it's worth it. It's really fun for me to look at. If you have any questions about private stock, please don't hesitate to leave a comment. And just as a reminder, all of these items will be going up in about 24 hours. That's Friday. I have to check my watch. Friday, July 28th at 12 p.m. noon Central Time. If you are on our newsletter, you will get an alert 1 hour before everything goes live. And if you're not signed up to the newsletter, I highly recommend checking it out because you will be the first to hear about all the new announcements, including the private stocks and other special events that we do. All right, until next time, hope you guys have a good one and take care.